Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are we all doing today? I hope we are all doing wonderful. I hope everybody has had a great week. I hope everybody has a great weekend ahead, whether it is a fun filled, crazy planned weekend or it is just a chilled at home planned weekend, whatever you prefer. Anywho, welcome to Rush to Judgment with Jessica, and I'm Jessica. It is nice to see you. If you are new here, welcome. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. If you are returning, glad to have you back. So glad to see you back. You're looking good. So, we are gonna jump right back into the Nicole Nachtman trial. And we are gonna start back in with day 5 with this trial. And if you've been following along, you know what it's about, so you don't have to listen to the recap. But if you don't, just a quick recap. Nicole Nachtman is on trial for the murder of her mom and stepdad. She is being charged with second-degree murder for those two unalivings, and they took place in August of 2015. The trial took place in July, August of 2019. So the trial's a little bit older. Oh goodness.
Things happen.
Oh goodness.
So,
Oh goodness.
anyways, cheers. Happy Friday to all of you.
Okay,
What a wonderful
okay,
week
okay.
we had.
Well, that just started. I apologize. Um uh so yeah, okay. Anywho, this trial was just kind of a trial I picked because I liked the judge. I've seen him in a couple other trials. It is a case that took place in Florida, and I like this judge. And I figured I like the way he does things. I like the way he handles trials. So I figured, why not pick this one? And it just so happens that this defendant, Miss Nachtman, has decided to go with the um, insanity plea. So, which it has another name now, and I knew it earlier, and now I can't. Mental something something. I don't know, but it's not called insanity anymore. It might have been in 2019, but it isn't now. Uh, Mental impairment or something. It's more PC term now, I imagine, because everything has to be politically correct and not offensive and whatever. So that's how we have to term things now. Um, anyway, that's the topic for another day. So anyway, that is what we are doing, and we have heard from. We're still in the state's case in chief. We are still listening to state witnesses. I'm hoping that it gets a little bit more interesting come defense. Defense, they're a bit bitchy, both of them, when they do their cross examination. So that gives a little bit more uh, room for criticism and judgment on my end, just because they're bitchy. um, but yeah, so, and just a reminder that this is not any type of legal advice. I am not any type of legal expert. I am just a plain Jane, regular Joe out here giving my opinions and criticisms and commentary to these trials and some true crime events as well. Go check them out on my page, Rush to Judgment, and like, comment, subscribe, do all of that. And yeah, so let us get started. At it, and we go.
Everyone except Miss Percy. Do we need her?
I don't have any idea what Ms. Gary's getting ready to speak about, so. Yeah, she may want to be in here for it.
She what?
She may want to be in here.
All right. Can we get Miss Percy? She should be right outside the room.
Should be in the witness room.
All right. Ms. Gary had some things
Yes,
she
sir.
said she wanted to
What I want to bring up is rather than having an objection for, every single witness and objecting repeatedly as these witnesses are talking, I anticipate a lot of the defense witnesses that are calling today we're going to be in a very similar situation to what we were yesterday during Ms. Roman's testimony,
Right.
where the state objected to hearsay.
Right.
So what I wanted to address before that is, in looking at Earhart regarding hearsay, when a defendant seeks to introduce testimony concerning his or her own out-of-court statement for the truth of the matter asserted, it's hearsay, unless it falls under an exception. There is no exception for that statement being something the expert then later relied on. Now, I acknowledge that under 704, regarding expert testimony, experts can talk about things that are potentially inadmissible otherwise if it's something they rely on.
But even they are not a conduit to hearsay.
Correct, but the state's contention is that there is no exception for these witnesses for the defense questioning their own defense witnesses regarding statements that the defendant made that is the state's position are being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. That she was in fear of her mom, that her mom made her change her grades, that her mom controlled her life. Statements that she made. It is self-serving. It's being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. There is no exception because the experts are later going to talk about it. And again, I'm not speaking of the expert witnesses. I'm only speaking of the non-expert witnesses. So while we completely agree that they can testify to their observations, to her behavior, various things like that, to specifically ask them things like what was asked of Ms. Roman yesterday, what did she tell you about her grades? What did she tell you about changing her major? Things like that.
I don't remember those questions.
Well, I recall that I guess Ms. Roman talked about various things that her mom felt about, just different things at college, I guess. But either way.
She was at college with her, so
Right.
the things she observed at college.
Correct, but there were statements that the state objected to that Ms. Roman testified about yesterday that the state believed were hearsay. And if you recall, we approached and we addressed those things and Your Honor admitted it. So I just, again, prior to having each of these witnesses testify to what the state believes is going to be hearsay, I wanted to kind of put it out there now, what our position is rather than approaching.
All right, let me see. But these next witnesses, do you anticipate asking any questions about statements that Ms. Nachtman made to them or just things that they observed?
Both. And we don't believe they're hearsay because they do fall under the state of mind exception. So I disagree with Ms. Gary. So section 9803, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition. Our client's state of mind in this case is the number one issue as it relates to the defense. It's relevant to both insanity and it's relevant to both self-defense and her fear of her mother. So it's our position that any statements Nicole made about fearing her mother, obviously they can talk about behaviors. Our witnesses are also going to talk about the anxiety she felt every time her mom was going to find out about something. Those are observations. But yes, they're going to talk about general observations and the fear that Nicole had of her mother. And it's absolutely relevant to her state of mind because not only is her state of mind an issue for insanity, but these witnesses are going to establish how Nicole is deteriorating throughout her childhood and into college, unable to care for herself, and her state of mind is absolutely an issue in this.
But relevance is not an exception to hearsay. It sounds like what you're saying to me is that whatever the specific statements, again, I'm kind of hard pressed without the exact statement to be able to determine whether it is being offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted or something else. So without the matter asserted, I just am not in a position where I can make those decisions.
It's not the matter asserted, it's under the state of mind exception. And her state of mind, if it's an issue in the case, it's relevant. Her state of mind, Nicole Nachtman. So the statements are not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, but to show her state of mind, not only at the time of these offenses and fearing her mom, but why all this built up of her fearing her mom actually
I agree, and I hear you, but that's what I'm saying. Until I hear the statement, I know what it is. How can I make a determination whether it's being offered for the truth of the matter asserted or whether it's being offered to show her state of mind?
So
Because I
bring
guess
her in,
if I
question
listen to
her
specific question
outside of
that
the
then
jury.
entails a statement, or,
and
I
be
mean, I don't know how
that.
you wanna do it. I can tell you any statements I intend for the most part or generally, or we can approach and you can. I
Well,
can
we
tell
may
you, I
have,
believe the
to
response will
approach,
be.
but there may be some general category that I can give you an idea, like the one we discussed yesterday. Like, whether it was hearsay for the counselor or whatever to say that Nicole said she wanted to kill Zoe. I can't imagine you're offering it to prove that. That's that we have to look at the content of the matter asserted. I want to kill Zoe. There's no way in the world that I'm going to believe that you're offering it to prove that she wanted to kill Zoe. So
Correct.
obviously it's being offered for some other matter, and therefore, well, as long as that matter goes to her state of mind, it falls within the exception, and it's not
Correct.
hearsay.
Correct.
But until I see the statements,
Okay,
I don't know. Now, and I given the state, maybe the two statements later, I want to kill everybody, again, not being offered to prove. I feel like I'm going to snap. That might be being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, and then hearsay and not admissible. But until I determine that it's being offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted, it's not hearsay. And I can't determine that until I see the statement.
okay.
So it depends. Depends on what the statements are. But I caution the state to be aware of that. What is the matter being asserted in the statement?
And Judge, I totally agree with you, and we are, but it's our position that based on what's come out so far and based on the opening statement of the defense, they absolutely are introducing things like the fact that she had to change her grades because her mom would be upset with her because she was getting failing grades. They are introducing that for the truth of the matter asserted. And I anticipate there are several witnesses this afternoon.
To prove that she changed her grades? Why would they want to prove that she changed her grades?
Because she had to do that or else her mom would be upset with her failing grades.
Okay, well, then the rest of it, that because her mom would be, then that's being offered to prove that, and that may be precluded. But she said she changed her grades. That's admissible. It's not hearsay. Now, the rest of it, and the expert can talk to that later, but not, she changed her grades because she was afraid of her mom. That's being offered to prove that she's afraid of her mom. And so that's hearsay. But she said she changed her grades. Period. Fact. That's not being offered to prove what's the matter asserted in. If the statement is, she tells one of her friends, I changed my grades. What's the matter asserted?
That she changed her grades.
Period.
I guess we disagree, Judge, because I do believe they are offering it to show that she actually changed her grades. That the witnesses will testify that she would print out progress reports and actually white out and change grades so that it looked different. So to split it up, because I believe that's absolutely why they're doing it, because it goes to the whole defense that these are the kinds of crazy things that she had to do to please her mom. So I disagree. I think that they are introducing it to prove that she changed her grades. And that's just an example. And I'm perfectly fine if the court wants to take it one step at a time. As the witness, as the question is asked and as the statement comes out, I'm perfectly fine if you want to take it at that. That's okay, and the state will do that. I was just simply, again, going off of some of the things that were said yesterday from Ms. Roman, just trying to anticipate that I think that, maybe some of the issues that we deal with this afternoon.
What's the defense position on that?
On,
I mean,
she said a lot of.
you may be. Not going to say she's changed my mind, but she has my attention that you may have to prove that she actually changed her grades. So my example may not be as beneficial to the defense as I thought it originally was. You are attempting to prove she changed her grades so that you can then argue she changed her grades because she was in fear of her mom, or that the expert can make statements regarding why she changed her grades.
Her transcript of FSU is going in and it's gonna show Fs. That's not what the evidence is gonna show. Her mom knew about, if her mom had known about the Fs, we would have had a serious problem here. So the transcript as a business record is in as to what her true grades are.
Is that's coming in later, it's not in yet.
So it hasn't been objected, that's one of the ones they agreed to. So it clearly shows that by the last semester, she's making Fs. The witnesses will then say, I'm aware that she changed her grades. The evidence is, so that her mom would get in trouble. The evidence of the grades is in, they're Fs. Now, do I have the actual Photoshop printout? I mean, if the court's gonna require me to do that, I may have to go look at
Photoshop printout of what?
of her actually changing them to A's, but the fact of the grades is it will be an evidence that those are Fs.
And your position is that the changing of the grades is being offered to show what, other than they were changed?
They're changed, and what her state of mind is at the time, well, that's what, to me, I don't think the fact that she changed her grades is hearsay. If a witness or a friend is aware or saw her change her grades,
No, absolutely, 100%.
then I don't think there's an exception necessary.
They're not, I don't think you're not objecting if a witness coming here and say, I saw her change her grades. You're not objecting that that's hearsay.
Not if they say they saw her.
Right.
saw her do it.
Right. The issue here is Nicole told me that she changed her grades. And just because she's a defendant in this case does not make it an exception to hearsay. Self-serving hearsay is not admissible statements of the defendant.
I'm just gonna see what the witness.
But it's not hearsay unless it's being offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's being offered to prove that she changed her grades so that you can then argue she was changing her grades because she was afraid of her mom.
Correct, which her state of mind is that issue in this case, and that's where I believe they're relevant. So the witness would say she changed her grades a couple of times because her mom. She would print out a copy of her grades, she would give it to her mom, and she would change the grades to an A or a B.
Well, I mean, I'm concerned about the because of her mom. How do they know that? If they saw her print them out and change them, they absolutely can testify.
And that's all I was, then I can
You
elicit that, and then the
establish
grades are
those
in there
facts.
and speak for themselves.
You can make argument later as to why, and the psychiatrist can talk about why she believed she was changing her grades and that she thought that she was afraid of her mom and that she was hallucinating. The insanity expert talks about that he doesn't think that the mom was a danger to her, that those were hallucinations on her part. I think those were his words. His words were that she was delusional and that those were hallucinations, that the mom wasn't really going to kill her,
Correct.
that was hallucination. So the experts can talk about all that.
Yes, sir.
If you want to establish facts that people saw, we're not going to have any problems here. If you want to introduce things that they're going to say Nicole told me, then we're going to have to approach it. I'm going to have to make a determination as to whether it's being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. And if so, whether there's some exception to it.
Well, it
If
clearly
it's not being
is.
offered the proof of the truth of the matter asserted, then it's simply not hearsay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else?
One final thing, and I know this is complicated, Doug, because there are two defenses going at the same time,
It
which
is
makes it extremely difficult to separate the two. Even the state is having a hard time knowing what exactly purpose they're putting on certain evidence for. At this point, Your Honor, it's still the state's contention. I believe we've now rested. You've seen all the evidence that the state has. There is no evidence of self-defense. Therefore, that
Oh yeah,
instruction
the
is not
state
really
rested.
available.
I
So we
forgot
need
about that.
discussion about battered
Brother
child
was the
syndrome,
last.
any evidence regarding specific allegations of abuse. I think at this point, go to the battered child syndrome, go to self-defense, which is not applicable in the state's position, and therefore should not come in. So I urge the court to look at it all with caution as well as to what the purpose is of what they're introducing it. I understand that insanity plays a big role in all of this, and some of the issues kind of mix with both.
That's my
and
concern.
that is a challenge, Your Honor, and I understand it's a challenge for the state, it's a challenge for Your Honor, but it's still the state's position, and that no evidence has been presented at this time of self-defense. And we've now rested our case. So until the defense puts on some sort of evidence of that, I would urge the court to make sure that, and we would object to them getting into any sort of specific allegations of child abuse, any specific dealings with that. So that's our position on that.
Judge, my position, as I stated yesterday, whether our expert tomorrow can opine on battered child syndrome will be an issue for the court to address. However, both experts will say that the treatment of Ms. Nachtman by her mother, beginning at basically birth, and the turmoil that she grew up in, led to her mental health deterioration, led to symptoms of mental illness, as you stated earlier from Dr. Ewing, as early as the 3rd grade. That family is seeing these symptoms of mental illness and telling Miriam Dean she needs counseling and nothing's happening. That then gets us to August of 2015. So regardless of whether tomorrow Dr. Heidi can use the words battered child syndrome is a separate issue in and of itself of whether this child.
But just because family members tell you
relevant for
the
this
kid needs
jury to hear,
counseling.
and that includes how her mother treated her. Both physical, verbal abuse, and anything this family witnessed along the lines, because our experts are going to say that led to her mental health
Parent choice.
deterioration, which ultimately led her to become delusional,
Doesn't
psychotic.
necessarily
and insane
mean
on
that
the
that's
Well, and the brother is
Battered
already
child
tested to
syndrome?
derogatory statements that the mother made. I mean, the brother is in one of the best positions to address that, and he's already testified.
Well, and he said he saw changes in middle school, but keep in mind, the brother's living in Utah, the brother's living in Washington, and the brother's seeing her maybe in the summers. And so he sees his observations.
Lady,
about
you're
the
got an
time.
whole
There's
ass
families that lived in
attitude
the city
with
of
the
Tampa
fucking judge.
that saw her regularly.
And the judge is
witnessed
trying to
other
be on your
observations,
fucking side,
behaviors,
too.
And how she was in the relationship with the mother. It's absolutely relevant.
And I just want to add, Judge, the fact that the state has rested their case, that's right, we're now in the defense case. We have a right to put on our facts and our evidence that may very well support the battered child syndrome, self-defense, and insanity. So how Mr. Terry feels that you should engage in precluding our presentation of our case, I just don't find to be appropriate at this time. And I think that approaching, I will tell you, they can derail me every question and go up to the bench. It's not going to affect me at all. It's not going to affect Ms. Hersey. But to give a blanket, no self-defense in this case, and think about that, Judge, there's no self-defense. You haven't even heard our case yet. And it's not all based on just experts.
Well, the issue is that the theory of battered child
You
syndrome
should have a
is
defense.
not something that
You
can
should have had a
use
defense picked
until
out.
you've broken,
What
reached
you
that
mean?
of that there was self-defense.
And no one today is going to utter the words battered child syndrome. No one today. Our experts will be tomorrow, and by tomorrow we'll have decided, rested, as far as the lay witnesses, and then I believe the court can opine on whether that word or that term can be used. No one is going to utter the words battered child syndrome today.
But we are going to try and lay a foundation for that which the state clearly wants excluded, no doubt about it. We are going to try and start laying out those facts today. So we certainly don't want you to be prejudging before you actually hear the witnesses, because you haven't seen depositions, you haven't seen the police reports. They're just asking you to do something in a vacuum, in my opinion.
Judge, and I understand this, Ms. Holt's opinion, but I gotta try our case for the state. We need to make sure the stuff that is not relevant is excluded, as any prosecutor would do anywhere in this county or anywhere in the United States.
No, I agree with you.
So we're trying to keep out evidence that is not relevant to specifically battered child syndrome until they establish bucket. And I did not say that they would not. I do not think they can. I do not think they will. But they have the chance to present some evidence of that. But I'm saying until now we have not seen it. In the case that I provided, Labby State was very clear that no evidence of battered child syndrome is admissible until they've reached that threshold where they've established a predicate of self-defense. That's all I'm asking the court to do.
No one is gonna utter the words today, Judge.
But there's a difference between the words and what descriptions of things that would only come in
Implication.
as part of battered spouse child syndrome. And here we have the addition of, and I've had the benefit of reading the doctor's deposition, which is what's his name, Dr. Ewing.
And as you pointed out, he realized things as early as third grade that people were reporting symptoms of her mental illness. So her childhood is absolutely relevant. The treatment of her mother is absolutely relevant, because what the ultimate hallucination and delusional thinking at the time of the offense for insanity is that she thought her mother was going to kill her. Why did she think her mother was going to kill her, even though the doctor himself thinks it's a delusion? Because of the years of abuse and the fear of her mother. It's all tied in.
Why are you so aggressive?
In that opinion, cannot be used until I've established self-defense. But all of that years of treatment and abuse by the mother is absolutely relevant to what she was thinking at the time of the offense. And in her mind, she mother was going to kill her. That was a delusion, and it was a paranoid thinking.
And even if I agree with you, which I do to some degree, when I read Ewing's deposition, absolutely, he's going to rely on that for the insanity. He's the insanity expert.
Yes, sir.
And he's going to rely on a lot of that. But the issue now comes back to how it comes in, whether it comes in as admissible evidence, and whether that just opens the door to hearsay, and it doesn't.
Judge, I heard your ruling on hearsay.
Okay.
We'll approach anytime I try to elicit hearsay.
Certainly, if somebody observed, for example, I'm going to the extreme here, her mother beating her, that's relevant to what Dr. Ewing is going to testify that caused her to have a mental break or caused her to be schizophrenic or contributed to, then it is relevant. So that's the first bar. You got it. Is the evidence relevant? If it's relevant, it should come in unless precluded by some other rule. If it's precluded by the hearsay rule because the person is simply saying, Nicole told me her mother beat her, then it's not going to be admissible. If it's I saw, then it comes in through you. Does the state understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Is the defense ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Judge.
All right, let's bring in the jury.
Ready, Judge? Yes. All right, the jury.
Brother.
Jury is present seated. Everyone else may be seated at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, jury, welcome back. First question to you is, did anyone discuss the case, do any research related to the case, or was anyone exposed to any reports about the case during the last break? By show of hands. Let the record reflect no hands. Thank you all very much. Is the defense ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor.
I'll ask you to call your first witness.
Elena Rowe.
Technically, I guess it's your second witness. You called one witness out of order during the state's case.
Yes, sir.
Did you say Rowe is the last name?
R-O-E.
Ms. Rowe, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon.
You'll come forward to be sworn. Once you cross
She's
that,
a
wherever
neighbor.
you're comfortable, you'll face me and raise your right hand.
She was a state's witness. Now
Raise
she's
your right
the
hand.
defense
Do you swear
witness.
affirm any
Girl,
testimony you've given in this
don't
proceeding
look
to be
her
the
up and down
truth,
like
the whole truth,
that.
and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. If you'll
The
follow
hell
the
was
bailiff around
that?
the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. When you get to the chair, go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. That microphone is adjustable.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You may proceed.
If you just state your name for the record and spell your last name.
Elena Rowe, R-O-E,
And what is your address, ma'am?
14108 Finsbury Drive.
And do you live there with other individuals?
Yes.
And who are those individuals?
Wes Rowe and Elizabeth Ray.
And Elizabeth Ray is your daughter, is that correct?
Yes.
And Wesley Rowe is your husband, is that correct?
Yes.
They testified
it's
earlier
her
this
mom.
week. You were here
Actually, last
last week? Okay, last
Yes,
week.
last
All right, thank you. How long have you lived at the address that you just gave us?
for 12 years, since 2007.
And did there come a time where individuals moved into 14110 Fensbury Drive?
Yes.
And do you recall about how long before 2015 that was?
I would say 2012.
Okay, about 2012?
Yes.
Do you recall actually observing the individuals move into the house?
No, but soon after.
And how many people do you know moved in, at least in 2012?
3.
And do you recall the names of those
Yes,
individuals?
it was Miriam, Bob, and Nicole.
And Miriam, was that Miriam Deans,
Yes.
Robert Deans?
Correct.
And you're speaking of Nicole Nachtman?
Yes.
And could you look around the courtroom and see if you can see the person that you know as Nicole Nachtman?
Yes. The girl in the gray sweater.
Judge, if the record might reflect that she's identified as Nachtman.
Right, which also reflect.
During the time period that the Dean's family lived next to you, did you all become closer than just neighborly? So in other words, did you socialize together or create a friendship or anything of that sort?
Not so much, just neighborly.
Neighborly? And what would that mean to you? What does neighborly to you mean?
Like we would say hi to each other. If we go out of town, they would pick up our mail, and likewise, if they go out of town, we would pick up their mail.
Oh, not hearing. If I can get you to get a little closer to the microphone so that it amplifies your voice.
Okay.
You'll be able to tell it.
Oh, I can hear it now. I can hear myself a lot better. I apologize.
That's right.
I think you indicated that you would go pick up their mail and they would pick up yours if y'all were respectively out of town.
Yes.
She has some sort of accent.
Did you ever
I
go
wonder
into
where
the
she is
actual
from.
Dean's home at all?
Barely. I mean, I did go in like a little bit.
Kind of like in the foyer area or something?
Yeah.
Did you ever have them over to your house either for any type of social purpose at all?
Not really, except one year I invited Nicole to go trick or treating.
And you recall about how old Nicole was at that time?
I think she was a senior in high school.
And at the time that Nicole would have been a senior
It's
in
a
high school,
little
how
too
was your
old to
daughter?
be trick or
She was about
treating.
11.
And did you ever have occasion
11.
to, other than on that one occasion, did you ever have any other
Seems
interaction
old to
with
be
Nicole during
trick-or-treating.
the 2012 year, 2013 year, or 2014 year?
Well, I know she left for FSU, so I didn't really see her much other than like holidays and summer. But I would
She
see
has
her
like the
running.
Celine
Like when she would
Dion
come
accent.
for the summer, I would see her like walking, usually running.
What time of the day would Miss Nachtman choose to run at?
Well, I run myself early, like in the evening, like after 7. So I would see her then. Sometimes I would see her during the hottest part of the day, which I thought was strange. Like it was so hot.
And in your conversations with either Mr. and Mrs. Deans and or Nicole, you had learned that she was going to go off to FSU. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have any idea? Were you personally aware of what her study in school was going to be at all?
I did not know. No, but when I went trick or treating, she mentioned political science.
And during the summer of 2015, how often would you see Miriam Deans during that time period?
I didn't see her that much.
And were you aware of what Miss Dean's work schedule was or the fact that she traveled?
No, it wasn't. It seems like she wasn't there much.
And when you say not there much, you mean there at the home? Is that correct?
Right.
And how often would you see Mr. Deans?
Almost every day.
And during that summer of 2015, how often would you see Nicole Nachtman?
I would see her, but like I said, mostly just running. And
During the time periods that you would see Miss Nachtman running, and either you were running or just out in the neighborhood, would you have any interaction at all whatsoever?
I would wave to her, but she really wouldn't wave back, like she doesn't know me.
And again, did you find that to be strange?
Yes.
Because you did go trick-or-treating with Miss Nachtman, could you tell me a little bit about what your impressions were of Miss Nachtman in terms of how she appeared to you?
Mhm.
She's 17, so you tell me.
Right. She mostly talked to me. She didn't really talk to Elizabeth, and I think maybe because Elizabeth is so much younger. Elizabeth is 7 years younger, so maybe that's why. But she mostly talked to me, and she was talkative and pleasant. But I thought she was a little bit younger for her age.
And by younger, you mean a little bit immature for the
A little
age
bit for high school.
for high
yes.
school?
And like the younger kids, Elizabeth and her friend were asking for candy, and Nicole was asking for fruits and vegetables. And I found it strange.
During the time period that your daughter would have been at home during the summer of 2015, would she have been alone most of the time, or did you kind of have a family member checking in on her?
I would have my mom. My mom would check on her almost every day. But sometimes she was like alone, but my mom would come at least once a day.
Do you know whether or not your mom had any interactions with Nicole at all? And don't tell me anything your mother has said, but just do you know whether or not they had any interactions?
I think like my mom would say hi and mom. Okay, that's it.
You weren't personally there to observe how Miss Nachtman interacted with your mom, however.
No, I didn't see that.
Now, going specifically to the night of August the 20th, 2015, do you recall that night?
Yes,
And you recall that night because obviously there was an incident where a lot of law enforcement ends up there.
right.
At the actual time of about 9:15 or so,
Mhm.
were you physically at your home?
No, I was out walking.
And on that particular day, had you worked?
Yes.
And about what time did you get home from work?
I usually don't get home until 6:30 or 7, but that night I was home earlier because Elizabeth was going into high school and she had orientation at her high school.
And did you go with your daughter to the orientation?
Yes, I met my daughter. Her dad picked her up from the house and then I met them at school.
And after the orientation, do you know what Elizabeth and her dad did?
They think went out to dinner, to Panera Bread.
And what did you do?
I just had dinner at home and then went for a walk.
Do you recall about what time it was that you headed out for a walk?
Say around 8.
At the time you got home from orientation, do you recall whether or not you made any observations of the cars that were actually at 14110 Fence Ferry Drive? That's when you first got home from work.
I didn't really pay attention.
Now, when you came back from orientation and you had dinner and you were leaving to go for a walk, did you make any observations at that time of the vehicles that might have been either at the home or in close proximity to the home at 14110 Fence Ferry Drive?
I saw Nicole's car because what happened, I was walking and her car was parked in kind of like the end of the driveway and I was texting my friend and I almost tripped in her car, so I almost fell.
And you indicated that this was at about 8 o'clock
It was shortly after.
or shortly thereafter. Did there come occasion between 8 and 9 where you returned back home for some reason?
Yes, I had to reset my Fitbit.
And you came home, you reset your Fitbit, did you go back out to walk again?
Yeah, I went back around 9.
Again, did you make any observations of whether or not Nicole's car was
reset my
still there at
Fitbit.
14110 Fence Ferry Drive?
Like the second time, I really don't remember. I just remember seeing it earlier, around like 15.
And you identified Nicole's car as which one?
Red Prius.
I don't believe I have any other questions at this time of this witness. Thank you, Ms. Rowe.
So they have that witness because she says she saw the car there.
Good afternoon, Ms. Rowe.
Hello.
Ms. Rowe, during the course of your time living there, did you ever hear any yelling, screaming, or anything coming out of the house next door of the Nachtmans?
Objection, outside scope of direct.
I mean, technically, they're so snotty. They're snotty catty bitches. That's what they are. I don't care for it. I don't care for it.
Ms. Rowe, did you ever hear any yelling, any arguing, any screaming, or anything coming from the house next door, the Dean's house?
No.
Oh,
Now,
They
Ms. Rowe,
wouldn't.
on the night in question, you were not present when the actual shooting took place, were you?
Yes,
All
I
right.
was away.
You were away. You were out for your walk,
Yes, I
right?
went for my walk.
All right. And on that night, when you got home, you were interviewed by law enforcement officers, were you not?
Yes.
And you, in fact, recall you were, on that night, you were interviewed by Detective Mitch Messer, who was the lead detective in the case.
Yes.
And he recorded that phone call, did he not?
Yes.
The
Okay.
objection only is to the form of the question because it wasn't a phone call. That's all.
I'm sorry, it wasn't a phone call. He recorded that conversation.
Right, the conversation.
Thank you. So and would you agree with me that on that night in question, your memory was a lot clearer as far as what you saw and didn't see on that night than maybe what it is now, today?
I was like, I don't know if I totally agree because I was like in shock. So
Okay.
I was kind of like absent-minded.
All right. Well, do you recall when they asked you whether or not, and you were here very specific about what you saw. However, on the date in question, when they asked you if you had seen her car in the last couple of days, you said, or has her car been in the driveway, your response was
It's not
that,
just objecting and proper impeachment. He hasn't even allowed an opportunity to refresh your recollection.
all right, I'll show her the report. Would you care to?
good Lord. They did not object that much to you. Psycho lady.
So does that refresh your recollection about what you told the officer on that day?
Yes,
And did you in fact not tell him that you did not or don't remember seeing her car there that day?
it appears to be, yes.
No further questions.
Redirect?
Yes, thank you, Judge, just a few questions. Ms. Roy, you just indicated though that, well, let me start this way. How, from the time that you went out to walk that close to that 9 o'clock, what time were you allowed to return back to your home?
You mean like when I came for a break?
No, so you came home at 8 o'clock to
Right.
reset your Fitbit.
Right.
Then you left to go back out to walk.
Mhm.
Did there come a time where you wanted to come back home but wasn't able to do so?
Yes, they wouldn't let me go back until after midnight.
And when you say they, you mean law enforcement who was in
Right.
that area, obviously
Right.
investigating what was occurring, correct?
Yes,
During that time period, though, were you also in conversation with your husband and or daughter telephonically?
yes.
And you indicated that that
Telephonically.
night you feel like you were in shock.
Mhm.
Why do you feel that way?
Well, because talking, and I was actually talking to Elizabeth on the phone about making plans for the next day. She told me, Mom, I think we hear gunshots, don't come home.
And so
She
you're
said,
being
"Don't come
asked by your
home."
daughter and your husband not to come home at a time when they're also telling you that they think there's gunshots.
Right.
Did you also learn during that time period you were gone, someone had actually been found deceased?
No.
Did law enforcement tell you why they weren't letting you through to your home?
Well, they said that there was a body in our driveway.
Okay, so they had told you there was a body in your
Right.
driveway.
Well, damn.
And did that exacerbate did that make your anxiety worse or did it make it better?
It made me very anxious.
And you did speak to law enforcement that night
Mhm.
and they did record your statement, correct?
Yes,
And you also had talked to members of our office trying to prepare for trial,
Mhm.
correct?
yes,
And you also talked to the state attorney's office trying to prepare for trial, correct?
yes,
And at a subsequent time, you had told us about the red Prius and almost tripping over it, correct?
yes,
And during the time period that the Dean's family lived next door, you indicated that you saw Mr. Dean's pretty much on a daily basis outside.
yes.
Did you ever see he and Ms. Nachtman interacting with each other?
No,
Did you ever see Mrs. Dean's and her daughter interacting outside together in any way?
no,
And the Dean's family, they had a pool area, lanai, and things like that in the back of their home, correct?
yes,
Did you ever overhear anything going on outside? Good things, not bad. Anything good?
no.
During your observations of the Dean's home where Ms. Nachtman lived
Mhm.
from 2012 to 2015, how soon after they moved in do you believe that Nicole Nachtman went off to FSU to go to school?
I would say in a year or so.
So she wouldn't have been there but for holidays
Mhm.
and the summer in 2013, 2014, and then obviously 2015 in the
Mhm.
spring, correct?
Yes,
During the time period that you did, however, observe Ms. Nachtman at home, and during the time period that Ms. Nachtman lived with her family there at the house, did you ever see young individuals coming and going from the Dean's home that could be perceived as Ms. Nachtman's friends?
Mhm. No,
I have nothing further. Thank you.
thank you.
Let me just make sure, this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
Am I the state? Yes, sir. Take, maybe step down, maybe excuse the witness this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was riveting. It's
I'll ask the defense.
riveting.
The defense calls Ronald Nachtman.
Oh, this is her dad.
Mr. Nachtman, good afternoon and welcome.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
You'll come forward to be sworn wherever you're comfortable. If you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. You swear affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff around to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your steps, sir. When you get to the chair, go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. That microphone is adjustable. You may proceed.
Introduce yourself to the jury, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ronald Jane Nachtman.
Mr. Nachtman, how are you related to Nicole Nachtman?
I'm her biological father. I'm her legal father.
Mr. Nachtman, what do you do for a living?
I have a PhD in human anatomy and cell biology. Currently, I'm a college professor.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been a college professor for about 10 years and 2 months.
How did you meet Nicole's mother, Miriam Deans?
I met her at Memorial Park late January of 1993.
Let's tell the jury what state were we in at the time?
We're in Texas, Houston, Texas.
So you met Ms. Deans at a park.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you all then begin relationships or dating? How did that happen?
She wanted to meet people, so I told her about a single Sunday school class that I attended. And we, at the church, it was a large church, we also had a volleyball team for single people. So she showed up every week at the Sunday school class. And also, we played volleyball many months together.
When you met Ms. Deans, did she already have 2 children?
Yeah, she had 2 boys that she told me, Joey and Kevin. I didn't meet them right then. She told me they've been living with her mother in Tampa for about 8 years.
So when you initially meet Ms. Deans in Texas, you learn that she has 2 children already, but that they're clearly not there with her in Texas.
That's true. She said she was living in the Memorial area, Spring Branch Memorial area, which is about 45 minutes from downtown Houston. And she was working up there at Spring Branch Memorial Hospital as a nurse.
And you had said a moment ago that you met her in 1993.
Yes, ma'am. It was either late January, probably. She played volleyball many months with us. I have photographs of us playing volleyball together.
How long did you know Ms. Deans before she became pregnant with Nicole?
She became pregnant with Nicole about mid-April of 93. Again, she was showing up at parties in Sunday school class.
I'm gonna object to said narrative.
You break it up with the question, ask another question.
You said she became pregnant in April of 1993 with Nicole.
Mid-April.
And you think you met her in early 1993.
Yes, maybe time in January. Like, she played volleyball with us every week.
So it was a short relationship before she becomes pregnant. Is that fair to say? You and Ms. Deans'
For
relationship.
4.5 months. Yes, ma'am.
And at the time she becomes pregnant with Nicole, have her sons rejoined her in Texas?
She moved in with me into my apartment at 614 Marshall. And then she and I got a rental home in the Texas Medical Center. She got a job there, and I worked there in the Texas Medical Center. So we rented a home there.
And then did the boys come live with you all?
Yeah, the boys came to live with us August 1st of 1993.
So for the first few months of the relationship, since you met her and then she becomes pregnant in April, the boys aren't there until later on in the pregnancy, sometime in August of 1993.
They arrived August 1st from Tampa. Yes, ma'am. That day.
Now, was Miriam going through a divorce at the time you and her met and began this relationship?
Yes, she was, but I didn't know that. She was going to the single Sunday school class and the volleyball team singles. I didn't know she was married.
But you later learned that at the same time she was seeing you, she somehow was going through a divorce with her son's father.
I learned after the pregnancy when she was living with me that she was married. They were going through a divorce, yes.
Now, at some point you indicated you all moved in together and then eventually got a rental home, all while she was pregnant with Nicole?
She actually moved in before she was pregnant. She said she had lost her job at Spring Branch Memorial.
Don't tell me what she said, just tell me kind of the time frame as far as when you believe she
moved in at the start of April. She didn't have a job.
And that was 1993.
Yes.
And then when was Nicole born?
Nicole was born on February 11th,
Of what year?
1994.
Okay. Now, after Miriam moves in with you, can you tell the jury a little bit about your relationship with her while she's pregnant with Nicole?
Everything seemed to be fine. There was a few weird things that were going on. There was nothing major, but we were having fun, going out to parties with people, to dinner. She was playing volleyball. We went fishing. We went to Freeport and stayed in Freeport on the beach for a few days fishing.
At some point, does something change in your relationship?
Well, we got the rental house, and the boys arrived on August 1st, as I said. And things drastically changed on August the 7th.
What happened on August the 7th of 1993?
Well, I taught her how to play golf, and I bought her golf clubs, and we played golf quite frequently. And she asked me to go play golf that morning, and I said, okay. And she started screaming that I was abusing her.
I'm gonna object.
Don't tell me what she said.
Legal basis,
Relevance.
approach.
Both relevance and narrative at this point.
I'm going to sustain, ask a general question.
Mr. Nachtman, at some point shortly after moving in, did you move out of the house?
Yes, I did, on the 18th of September.
And was that based on behaviors Miriam Deans was exhibiting at that time?
I was repeatedly being,
Judge, I'm gonna object.
I
It's not a
would
question.
instruct the witness to answer only the question we asked. It's a yes or no question.
Did you move out because of behaviors by Miriam Deans?
yes, ma'am.
Was Nicole born yet at this point?
No, she was, the baby was gonna be born
So when did you move out?
September 18th of 93.
And where did you go live?
I got a one-bedroom apartment, but then I changed to a two-bedroom apartment in the Texas Medical Center area, just down the street.
Did you and Miss Deans ever get back together or rekindle the relationship after you moved out in September of 1993?
She called me on January 31st, she called me at my home and invited me back to the birth.
Okay, so you were present when Nicole was born,
Yes, ma'am.
and that was February of 1994, correct?
That was February 11th, 1994.
And that was in Texas?
Yes, ma'am. And I moved back to the house.
You moved back in where Nicole was living for what purpose?
Nicole and I slept in the sunroom and I took care of her every day.
So even after you and Miriam Deans broke up, you all set up some type of
Oh,
caretaking schedule where you were taking care of Nicole every day as a baby.
I took care of Nicole every day by myself as a baby in the sunroom.
And until what age did you care for Nicole?
I moved out of that house into my two-bedroom apartment. I had a nursery and a two-bedroom apartment. And she solely lived with me until January 7th of 1995. I took care of her almost every day by myself.
So she was almost a little less than a year old. For the first year of her life is when you cared for her every day.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 11A, B, and C, and tell me if you recognize these.
This is
Just tell me yes first.
yeah, I recognize it.
Okay,
That's
what are
Nicole.
they?
They're pictures of Nicole in a church and an apartment.
And are they pictures with you and Nicole during that 11 or 12-month time period where you cared for her?
Yes, every day I cared for her by myself.
At this time, the defense will introduce Defense Exhibit 11A, B, and C.
Any objection?
No objection.
They'll be admitted.
Permission to publish?
You may vote.
Defense Exhibit
he
11A.
he's
Is
struggling.
that you and Nicole?
Yes, ma'am.
How old do you think Nicole was at that in that picture?
I know she was so happy. Oh,
How old do you think she was?
I can't tell.
Okay, but it was during that first year of her life.
That's our
Ma'am.
first one. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah.
Chill out.
11B.
That's probably after I got her back. Again, she was forced separated from me January 7th of 95. And I had to go to court to try to get her back.
11C. Is that also you and Nicole?
That's a church after lunch. That's a church group. We went to Sunday school class and church every day together, every Sunday.
Now, after those first 11 or so months that you cared for Nicole every day, what was then the visitation schedule or what the setup as far as you and Nicole goes after that?
I was told by the court,
Don't tell me what anyone told you. Just tell me what happens.
I had to go up to court to try to get her back to me.
Is that about when the custody battle between you and Miriam began?
The custody battle actually began November before she was born. She filed that there would be no legal rights to Nicole.
So November of 1993 is when Miriam first tried to prevent you from having visitation with Nicole.
That's right, ma'am.
And at some point, did you have to hire an attorney to handle that custody case for you?
Yes, ma'am. I hired Mr. Hirsch, Reginald Hirsch.
And did that custody case go on for most of Nicole's childhood?
It continued until she was finally taken away from me. Yes, ma'am.
Man.
Did Miriam also have an attorney for that custody case?
Yes, ma'am. She had Diane Richards. That was her first attorney, ma'am.
At any point after Nicole's birth, was there ever a time where you did not want to have visitation rights to Nicole or stay in contact with her?
No, I was always wanted to be with her every day.
And what would Miriam do? And don't tell me what she said, but what would her actions, what would she do anytime you attempted to assert your visitation rights with Nicole?
After I got her back on June 16th,
Of what year? Just so we know time.
95,
Okay.
she was disrupting the daycares that she was at. She did live with me about 60% of the time when I got her back by court order. We had a specific order. She lived with me 60% of the time, her time, 40% with the mother.
So there were times where you had Nicole, like you said, for the first 11 months or so every day.
Almost every day, ma'am.
Then the custody.
Well, I don't know if her mother was taking care of herself, ma'am.
But as far as your time with her goes from every day, maybe to none at all, then to 60% and vice versa.
Yes, and then as in the grandmother was the.
Objection narrative.
Well, he hasn't started. I'm going to caution him, though. as to non-responsive. Listen to the question that's being asked and only answer. You tend to, not do anything wrong,
Sorry.
but you tend to go on after you answer the question and add some stuff.
Okay.
So just listen to the question and try to respond to the question. that's
Poor
being asked.
guy.
Go ahead and re-ask the last question, so I can see whether it calls for a narrative.
Forgot what it was, but give
Well,
me.
rephrase one that doesn't call for a narrative.
At some point after Nicole's birth and after those first 11 months, does the visitation between you and Miriam fluctuate?
Yeah, she would prevent Nicole from seeing me.
How would she prevent Nicole from seeing you?
She would file phony police reports, and she would not turn Nicole over to me. So when she was supposed to be with me, that's 60% of the time.
So if there was an instance where it was your day or your time to have visitation with Nicole, Miriam would somehow block that attempt by you.
It wasn't just blocked for one day. The grandmother from Florida came in and blocked it for maybe another 4 months.
How old was Nicole the last time you saw her as a child?
Well, I saw her here in Tampa on September 28th of 1998. That was at the Safe House, the supervised visitation program. The last time she was in with me in our home, that was October 7th of 1996.
So in October of 96 was the last time you were able to basically have her in your home.
And care for her, yes, ma'am.
And she would have been about 2 then, 2.5.
Going on 3, yeah.
And then the last time you physically laid eyes on her as a child was in 1998 when she was about 4.
4.5, September 28th, ma'am, down here at the supervised visitation program.
Did you ever give up on attempting to have a relationship with your daughter?
I never gave up one day. Not one day.
After her arrest, did you immediately attempt to reunite and have contact with her in August of 2015?
Yes, ma'am, I came here, I went over to the jail, and I got information about mailing postcards, and
And so you immediately tried to reinitiate contact?
I send her postcards every day. I still do, and I put money into a phone account in Canteen for her.
And have you maintained regular contact with Nicole since her arrest and since this case has been pending?
Almost every day I send her postcards telling her I love her. We've had audio-visual contact through, and I for many months I drove over to Tampa to see her through the TV or I've had holiday contact, and also with her family in Cincinnati. All her family in Cincinnati, we had regular contact with her.
Your family,
The paternal family of Nicole's in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, we've all had regular contact with her since, yes.
since this case began?
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as that goes, Nicole also did not have contact with any of your family from 1998 until her arrest in 2015.
That's true, ma'am. We were all blocked from having access to her.
If I can have a moment?
You know, but you have to take into consideration that this is a one-sided story. You're not going to get mom's side of the story. You're going to get his side of the story.
Yeah.
You don't know.
No other questions?
Cross-examination.
Mr. Nachtman, so to clarify, you had no communication with Nicole, your daughter, between the age of 4.5 and 21 when she was arrested for this offense.
If you would have
correct?
asked my dad, he would have said
correct,
my
yeah.
mom
And
kept
to clarify a
him
couple
away
other things
from
about
me
some of
as
the things
well.
you said, you've actually previously said that there was no conflict between you and Miriam Deans,
and that he
correct?
took
We had no
care of
conflict, ma'am.
me.
In
And
our
there was no war between you and Miriam Deans, right?
In our family system, Mom Miriam, Dad Ron, and our daughter Nicole, we had no conflict.
But I'm asking between you and Miriam. You've previously said that there was no conflict between you and her, correct?
In our family system, we had no conflict, ma'am.
And Mr. Nachtman, it's accurate that you have another child that you haven't had any contact with since she was 6 years old, correct? Is that correct?
I have a sole custody of one child, another child.
But you've
Yes,
had no contact with her since she was 6 years old, correct? It's a yes or no question.
That would be true.
Judge, may I have one moment?
Oh shit.
Nothing further.
Redirect.
No questions.
Maybe excused at this time by the.
Interesting.
defense.
Subject to a proffer at a later time.
All right, then, you may step down, as the witness this time, but you're not released.
See, because my dad would say the same things though. That he took care of me for the first year of his life. Okay, well, because he was unemployed. My mom was
And I'll ask the defense
working.
to call your next witness.
They were married. He stayed home with me because he
Did
was
I call her?
unemployed.
Laura, what's the last name?
Customer?
He took
That's
care of me.
Ms. Hessemer, good afternoon and welcome. You'll come forward to be sworn wherever you're comfortable. If you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. You swear affirm.
Didn't
the
take
testimony
away
you give
from
in
the
this case will
fact
be the
that
truth,
he
the whole
was
truth, and nothing but
a
the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your
he
step.
would say my mom kept me
Leave it in the
away
chair,
from
go ahead, have a
him.
seat, make yourself comfortable. That microphone
Well,
is adjustable.
when you don't feel like your
What's your
child
name?
is in a safe
Laura Essemer.
environment,
Can you spell your last name for the court reporter?
you might do that.
HESSEMER,
Ms. Hessemer, where do you currently live?
Gainesville, Florida.
Did you at some point attend Florida State University?
Yes,
From what time period? Tell me the year span you were there.
from 2014 until 2016.
At some point, did you meet Nicole Nachtman?
Yes,
Where did you meet her?
it was the first class of the first semester.
What year, if you remember?
It was the spring of 2017, or 2015, sorry.
Okay. And what class was that you met her in?
History,
Did you become friends at some point with Nicole?
She looks
Yes.
real thrilled to be there.
Did she have any other friends at FSU besides you?
my own friends,
So she didn't have any of her own friends, but she became friends with your friends.
correct.
Did you ever go to her dorm or know where she lived in that spring semester of 2015?
I went to the dorm building, never inside her dorm bedroom.
At any point
Was this
during
her
that spring of 2015, other than your friends who you introduced her to, did you ever meet any of her college roommates or study buddies or anything like that of Nicole?
No, I was a study buddy.
Oh,
How did Nicole dress when she was in college?
She dressed in blue jeans, usually a t-shirt with a old windbreaker jacket.
Now the jacket, would she wear it like if it's cold outside and it's December, or did she wear it year round?
All year round, every day.
FSU's obviously in Florida.
Yes,
I'm assuming it's not too much cooler than, let's say, Tampa.
not by much.
And she would wear this heavy jacket even in the summer months or in the spring when it was hot.
Correct. It would become very smelly.
oh,
Did you also see Nicole with weights on
that's
her wrists?
unpleasant.
Yes,
And what were those for?
she said it to work out, to lose weight. Her mother wanted her to lose weight.
Would you also observe times when Nicole wanted to run or run the track at night?
I did not witness it, but she told me when
Don't
she.
tell me what she told you.
Okay, sorry,
So you never physically saw her running on the track at night.
not physically.
Are you aware of at some point Nicole changing her grades?
Aware of it, yes.
And when do you believe that happened? After you met her in spring of 2015, summer, kind of what time period did that occur? If you remember.
I remember it was after a semester. I can't remember what year that was.
What was Nicole's major when you first met her?
I don't remember that.
Does history sound right?
She wanted it to be history, and that's what she was going for till her mother made her change it.
And what did Nicole change her major to?
I don't remember. I do remember her mom forced her to go into ROTC. Sorry.
That's okay.
Ask another question.
Now, as you mentioned the smelly jacket that Nicole wore all the time. Can you describe for the jury Nicole's overall hygiene while you knew her or were friends with her?
She had a very strong odor. For the longest time, I thought it was because she didn't shower, but it turns out she did not wear deodorant. But whenever she did smell, I would wash her jacket and I would have her go take a shower.
What is your opinion as to whether after you met Nicole in college, she was capable of caring for herself, like bathing, laundry, those kinds of things?
Say that again?
What is your opinion as to whether you believe at the time you knew Nicole in college, whether she was able or capable of caring for herself, like her hygiene?
Hold on.
I'm not Jack's super giving her opinion.
I'm gonna sustain that.
What did you observe about whether she could bathe or care for herself or wash her clothes?
That was after a while of hanging out, studying, and we became better friends that I realized she wasn't taking care of herself.
Did you ever observe instances where Nicole had a poor self-image of herself? For example, at a pool?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
A bunch of our friends, there's a huge gym at Florida State University. We would go work out or we would go swimming. And all of us went to the pool one day and we asked Nicole to join us, but she refused to because she didn't like her image in a swimsuit.
Do you know about what time period that would have been in relation to when you met her? The first semester or after the
Who
first
likes
semester?
their image in a
That would
swimsuit?
be after the first semester.
Did Nicole ever have a boyfriend while you knew her, or any type of meaningful relationship like that?
No.
No, because she
In
was the
December of
ice princess.
2015, did you see
She would
signs
turn
that
them
Nicole
to
Nachtman was
ice.
exhibiting as far as being depressed or just kind of looking depressed?
We weren't really hanging out during the summers because she would be at home and I would be back in Tallahassee, but we were together again for the spring and fall semesters.
And did at some point you start to see observations that Nicole may have been depressed or looked depressed?
Not really, but I could tell that she did not want to go back home in fear of her mom.
So she wasn't excited like some kids are to go home on summer break or spring break or holidays or things.
Why does the sound go out like that? I don't like it.
The week of her arrest, did you speak to Nicole?
No.
Did you speak to her the week leading up, possibly that Monday before?
Yes.
And was there a discussion about LASIK surgery?
Yes.
And did you get the impression Nicole was scared about getting the LASIK surgery?
Yes.
Well, I don't want things touching my eyeballs either. Whee!
I want to ask you about Nicole's interest in Elsa and the movie Frozen. Can you tell
Who
the jury a
doesn't
little bit
like
about that?
Frozen?
She had
Let
a
it go. Let
imaginative
it go.
mind. She loved to draw. She loved to write stories. However, she does like horror, so she wrote a lot
Horror, not
of
horror.
fiction, horror stories
Horror.
with Frozen Elsa with another character from a different movie, and she would always pair them up together.
What about her obsession with like material things related to Elsa, dyeing her hair, costumes, things like that?
She did dye her hair. She wanted her hair to be like Elsa's, but it got so blonde. I told her she can't go further because it would actually break her hair. She told me her friends helped her with dyeing her hair, but that was when I said, I'm not aware of you having any other friends besides me.
Well, that was rude.
And she also actually stitched by hand a whole Elsa outfit so she would wear during Halloween.
The stories that you mentioned a moment ago that Nicole liked as far as Elsa, it
Very,
involved things like turning things into ice.
Correct.
Very handy of her to be able to make her own outfit.
At some point after you talked to Nicole that Monday about the LASIK surgery, did you all at some point have another communication with her?
Yes.
And what was that communication about?
There were 3 phone calls. One was about the LASIK eye surgery. The second one was about, Laura, I needed to get drugs. The third one was about trying
Need
to
to get
get a job
drugs.
in Tallahassee with me and
So let's break
looking
those up a
towards the
little bit.
future.
You told us first about the first one on Monday, you think about the LASIK.
Correct.
And then at some point, do you remember which week the call where Nicole called you and asked you about drugs was?
I believe a Wednesday.
What kind of
And
drugs?
so we're clear, this is the week before school is about to start.
Yes.
And the phone call about drugs, had Nicole ever used drugs in your presence before?
No,
Had you ever seen her buy drugs before?
no,
Had she ever talked to you about using drugs ever in her life?
only to lose weight.
But not as far as the type of drug she was calling you for.
Correct.
What you need drugs for there, Nicole?
And you believe that was Wednesday, the week before classes were to start on that Monday?
Yes,
Have a moment.
Let it go. Let it go. Gosh, stupid Elsa.
At some point after Ms. Nachtman's arrest, you turned over, I guess, the property that you may have had of hers. Is that correct?
yes,
I'm going to show you what's been introduced as Defense Exhibit 1N, and you can look at that screen right there. And is this the book or one of the books within Nicole's property that you turned over to law enforcement?
yes,
And this is basically a children's book about the movie Frozen.
yes.
Did I have any other questions at this time?
Cross-examination.
Afternoon, Ms. Hessemer. You and Nicole originally met in class together, correct?
Correct.
And one of the things that kind of connected you two was a cartoon that she was drawing that was something that you were also interested in.
Correct.
And during your friendship together, you all studied together, is that correct?
Correct.
Nicole attended classes during your time knowing her, correct? And her mom, there were times when you overheard conversations or at least could tell that she was on the phone with her mom at times, correct?
Correct.
And there was never any yelling or screaming, correct?
No.
Is that, yes?
Yes, there was no screaming.
You talked about, you said at one point that she was in fear of her mom. One of the things she was in fear of was disappointing her mother. Is that right?
Correct.
And she was in fear of her mom disapproving of things she did, right?
Correct.
Her mom financially supported her. Is that correct?
Yes,
She would regularly send her money
yes,
and Nicole relied on that money, correct?
yes.
Whenever Nicole broke or lost something, her mom would be the one to fix it or
I'm
pay
going
for
to
it.
object if I can approach.
Why? You don't like this line of questioning?
All right, Ms. Hessemer, Ms. Hersey asked you about some phone conversations that you had with Ms. Nachtman in the week of the offenses that we're here for today.
Yes,
And on one of those conversations that you had, well, let me ask you this. Towards the end of that week, was there an arrangement for Ms. Nachtman to come to Brandon and help you pack up your stuff to go back to school?
yes,
And that didn't happen, is that correct?
yes,
And do you recall a conversation that you had with Ms. Nachtman on the phone where she said thank you for having been a friend to her?
yes,
I believe you started to say this earlier, but during the part of the time that you knew Ms. Nachtman, she was enrolled in ROTC, is that correct?
yes.
And what was the ROTC program?
It was the Air Force, I believe, or Navy ROTC at FSU. She was in it for a short period of time.
You indicated earlier that her mom did not want her to be a history major and wanted her to change her major, is that correct?
Yes,
Isn't that because her mom did not believe that that would have been a fruitful or productive major going forward in life?
yes,
May I just have a moment, Judge?
I mean, she could have been a teacher.
Ms. Hessemer, your understanding of why Nicole wore weights, ran all the time and needed to lose weight was because of her mother, correct?
yes,
And it's your understanding that Nicole did her best in that arena, it just wasn't enough for her mom.
yes,
Well,
Nicole Nachtman expressed that she feared her mother.
Judge, I'm going to object to leading.
Rephrase.
Did Nicole ever express to you that she feared getting in trouble or feared her mother when she got in trouble?
yes,
Was your understanding as the reason Nicole Nachtman changed her grades again was fear of her mother finding out?
I'm going to object to ask and answer.
yes.
Hold on, just.
Oh,
Objection,
just
hold on.
wait a minute.
Let me-
Gotta wait
I'll-
till the
I'll-
judge makes.
Your answer was yes?
Yes.
Well, you gotta allow it now because she already answered it. You don't have to, I guess.
The phone call that Nicole made to you the week before school started, or really what ends up being the week she was arrested, that said, thank you for being a friend. When was that phone call?
Thank
After
you
the
for
drugs or
being a
After.
friend.
And just so the jury's clear, were you ever able to get her any drugs or even know where to send her?
No.
And when she asked you that question, did that surprise you?
Yes.
As you stated earlier, she had never really discussed drugs with you before.
Yes.
Had never even given you an inclination that she used drugs or associated with anybody who did drugs.
Correct.
Have a moment?
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
You may step down. You may be excused as a witness this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon break now. It'll be about a 10-15 minute break. Please do not discuss the case amongst yourselves or
Thank you for being a friend.
outside the courtroom, all rise to the jury.
Travel down the road and back again.
Jury is exited. Everyone may be seated. That was 3 of the 5, I believe. No, but so you only have 2 left. 3. Oh, you have 3 left. Okay, I thought you said you had 5 witnesses.
I kept saying 6, but
All right.
the math.
All right, and just because these objections we've discussed, and I just want to clarify a couple of things, and that is that statements about her mental, under the exception, those can be offered for the truth of the matter asserted. Under 90.803, paragraph 3, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition. We had a lot of argument here about whether they were offered for the truth of the matter asserted, and I thought the defense was arguing to me that they were not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, which would exclude them from the definition of hearsay. However, if they are being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, they are hearsay. But then there are exceptions like 90.803.3, which specifically allows a statement of the declarant. So if the declarant is Nicole Nachtman, it's his first statement, she's the declarant, then existing state of mind, emotion, or physical sensation, including a statement of intent, plan, motive, design, mental feeling, pain, or bodily health, when such evidence is offered to either prove the declarant's state of mind, emotion, on physical sensation at the time, or at any other time when such state is an issue in the action. So that's where I think we need to concentrate on if any issues come up as to whether they're hearsay. So I was scared of my mother when, or what I did, that's where we need to focus. Now, an objection was made to the state asking this last witness about things, and the state said their statements of Ms. Nachtman, and the defense response was that the exception is statements against interest, and that is not the case in Florida. They don't have to be against interest. So I'm not going to sustain any.
I don't understand.
That, as to hearsay,
This is
because
lawyer
they are statements of
legal
Ms.
stuff I
Nachtman,
don't get.
but they are not offered against
That is
interest.
why I'm not a
And,
lawyer.
that's clear in the rules.
And they get
Go ahead and
paid
take a break, and then we'll
to
pick
do
up where we
these
left
things
off.
because I don't understand. Okay. Well, so I was going to go on to the next one, but I'm not right now because I got to go do mom things. Because again, when I press record, that's when they want me to be mom, and the dogs want me to be mom. So, Jiminy Christmas. I don't know. It only gets spicy when the defense done took over because the defense is so spicy. They're just bitchy ladies. They're just bitchy ladies. Now, I felt bad for the dad for just a hot second because, well, I felt bad for him because I was like, oh, well, he tried as a dad. But then I thought about it and I'm like, huh. Let me think about it because there's 2 sides to every story and but then I thought, okay, well, he took care of the daughter and he can make, anybody can make themselves look good. Anybody can. And anybody can make the other person look like a monster. I mean, anybody can. So, and especially if he's been sitting there trying to, talk to his daughter and have a relationship with his daughter that he thinks he hasn't been able to have for the last however many years because she's been in the way. Hell, maybe he was in on it. Maybe he was like, yeah, do it. Do it. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, well, I gotta go take this whiny dog outside because apparently she can't go outside and do her business for anybody else in this house besides me. So, okay. But I'm gonna continue with this and keep going because we shall finish it. Okay. All right. Let me know what you think. Comment, like, subscribe, do the things, get it out there. You know, my subscriber count has kind of hit a lull. It was slowly going up, and now it's just kind of hanging out there. Let's get it up there, y'all. Put me out there. And then let me know if there's some things that you guys want me to comment on. Throw some suggestions out there. I love suggestions. Okay? If there's something you want my opinion on, throw it in the chat. Okay? All right. I shall see you. Peace.